Hey guys, welcome to You the Boss podcast, episode 90. I'm your host, Pam. Today's episode is going to be one of those conversations that, if you really let it sink in, can change everything. How you show up, how you think, and ultimately what you create in your life. We're going to be talking about reprogramming your subconscious for success. And I recognize that that can be a very dense topic to kind of break down. So I'm not going to pretend to be a scientist or anything like that. This is strictly on a mindset perspective and just to give you something to think about. The truth that most people don't realize, you're not getting the results not because you don't know what to do, but because your subconscious mind is running a completely different program. And we're going to break that down a little bit. The Starting with kind of like the real reason that you're feeling stuck. So we can start here. Your subconscious mind is responsible for about 95% of your daily actions and decisions. I know that a lot of people can kind of, because it's not something that everyone talks about or that everyone is kind of attuned to, they think that it's not something that necessarily exists. Statistics have shown, though, in the studies of the brain, that we do have a subconscious mind. So what it means to say that 95% of your daily actions and your decisions, that your subconscious is responsible for them, that means that your habits, the thoughts that you default to, the way that you react under pressure, it's not really something that your conscious mind is doing. It's automatic. So when you say that you want to be more disciplined or that you want to grow your business or that you want to feel more confident, but your subconscious believes that you always quit, that you're not consistent, that you're not good enough, you're going to self-sabotage every time. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack motivation or because you need this new system or you need this new thing. It's because your brain is wired to return what feels familiar, not what's better. Going, I guess, working a little bit in reverse, your subconscious gets programmed from repetition and from your environment and also with what you say to yourself. So like self-talk. Your subconscious doesn't randomly decide to be a certain way. It doesn't randomly gravitate to one over the other. It is because, like, through repetition, what you do constantly, it becomes who you are. It's the example that I always like to use is brushing your teeth. You can probably do it with your eyes closed, half asleep, because it's so normal to you. It's so simple for you to do because it's almost like an autopilot. Your brain learns through repetition, not through intensity, not through motivation, not one perfect day. It learns through repetition. So if you repeatedly procrastinate, you speak negatively about yourself, you avoid discomfort, your brain says, well, this is who we are. This is just who I am. This is just the way that I handle things. On the flip side, if you start repeating the actions of, like, you show up even when you don't feel like it, you keep small promises to yourself, you keep taking imperfect, messy action, your brain adapts. It starts to believe that this is the new normal for you, that this is who you are. And that's why consistency beats everything. A couple weeks ago, we did make an episode about that, about consistency over talent. And we talked a little bit about the reasoning behind that. It's because it's not flashy, but it is something that rewires your brain. The second thing is your environment. You become what you're around. I know that we've all been told as kids, show me who your friends are and I show you who you are. And at the time, at least for me, my mom used to say, el que anda con perro a ladrar aprende. Whoever's walking around with dogs is going to learn to bark. Your environment is programming you constantly. And I don't just mean people. I mean what you listen to, what you scroll on, what you watch, what conversations you entertain. If your environment is filled with negativity, complaining, limiting beliefs, you absorb that, even if you don't realize it. Even if you think, oh, that, I don't let that get on me. I love those people, or I love that, but I don't let that get on me. You're still absorbing that. But if you intentionally shift your environment and include growth focused content, people who challenge you, conversations about possibility, your subconscious starts to expand. This is why your growth requires distance from people, habits, or spaces that no longer align, not out of judgment, but out of necessity. I do want to circle back a little bit where I mentioned, what you listen to, what you scroll to, and what you watch. This is really relevant because in today's world, everything that we consume is digital. You know, other than reading a physical book or physical articles or physical newspapers, everything you consume is digital. And the reason that this is significant, and I wanted to circle back to this, is because of this way to consume, we have almost lost the art of research and things that are actual factual versus someone else's opinion. A lot of the time, even through music, we don't realize that we are consuming the digital age, that we're consuming different things through lyrics, through billboards. There's just so much. And again, I'm not going to make this episode only about digital consumption because number one, I've already done that. So if you're new here, you should go check that episode out. But also, it's a hefty topic. So I'm not going to make everything about digital consumption, but just wanting to circle back that we have become so conditioned to that form of consumption that we forget that the true crime, which I'm guilty of, the true crime listening and diving into these stories and that kind of a thing, that is consuming. And so we need to be aware of it. It does get into our minds. What you watch, consistently watching reality TV, watching trash TV. Again, I'm guilty of it because that's mostly what I watch if I watch anything. So it's important to be mindful of what it is that you're consuming in that way and how you're absorbing it, right? Number 3 is self-talk. This is the voice that shapes your identity. This one is huge. I've spoken about this a million times and I will continue to. You guys know that I read at least once a year What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. He is an incredible writer. It is a very, I would consider it a little bit dense if you're not used to that kind of reading or that kind of writing. But it's actually very easy to get through this book. And in that book, he talks about, neuroplasticity and he talks about self-talk. And the way that you talk to yourself is literally programming your subconscious because your brain does not filter truth from repetition. Your subconscious mind does not have that filter. So when you're constantly saying, I'm so bad at this, I never follow through, I always mess things up, your brain accepts this as a fact and then it acts accordingly. But here is kind of where it gets interesting. You don't need to jump straight to I'm the most confident person ever either. Your brain might even reject that. Instead, if you begin to shift your self-talk to something believable, like I'm learning to be more consistent. I'm becoming someone who follows through. I'm getting better every day. That's how you build new identity without resistance. So, kind of going with that theme of reprogramming your subconscious and how to start that, the real question is, how do you actually change it? So, I'm going to give you guys a couple of practical ways to start. Number one, repetition with intention. Pick one identity that you want to build, not 10, not everything at once, just one. So if this year it's the gym for you, if you're just into making sure your health is together, you're going to a nutritionist, you're starting to move your body postpartum, you're just working out for the first time in your entire life, pick that one. If you are looking to read more, that's just the one, just that one thing. Pick one. Pick what it is, the area, whether your health, your finances, whatever that is for you, just pick one. Maybe it's you want to be someone who shows up daily. So I'm someone who shows up daily. And prove it to yourself in small ways. Have 10 minutes of focused work, one promise kept per day, one action taken even when you don't feel like it. Small wins repeated build belief. Number 2, audit your environment. This one, I actually got off the call with my therapist, and I was having this conversation with her about how grief for me has brought forward the boundary of wanting not to be the person that's not considered. And this comes from, again, my grief and just doing the audit of my environment. You're taking a real look at who you spend time with, what content you consume, what energy you're around daily. And you ask yourself, is this reinforcing who I want to become or who I've been? You don't need to completely overhaul your life overnight. That is impractical and I kind of think a little overwhelming. But you do need awareness and you need intentional shifts. And I think auditing your environment and just being mindful of how you let your environment affect you, I think that's really important. Number 3, upgrade your self-talk. Start catching your inner dialogue. Not judging it, but just noticing it. And when you hear something negative, don't ignore it. Replace it. This isn't about fake positivity. This isn't about always being, happy-go-lucky. This is about choosing thoughts that are going to move you forward instead of keeping you stuck. I know that, especially on the online space, you can kind of feel overwhelmed. Everyone is positive Patty all the time. And if not, there's always somebody negative about something. So this is not to create that fake positivity, to create that, happy-go-lucky personality. It's just literally looking yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what, I got this. I can do this. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. And that shows up literally everywhere. And it is just taking that moment to reprocess and reframe. Now let's talk about the truth that most people avoid. Here's the part that you don't want to hear. Here's the part that Boss Lady is here to let you know what's up. Reprogramming your subconscious is not instant. Oh no, instant gratification, poof, gone. It does take time. It takes repetition. And honestly, it's boring. It's literally boring. You won't have a highlight reel about your subconscious reframing. You won't have, pictures to show your progress the way you can with the gym because it's not a big dramatic breakthrough. It's something that happens in small shifts if it's done consistently over and over again. But the small shifts, they do change everything. To kind of close this episode a little bit, I do want to let you know that who you become is not fixed. I want to leave you with, it's not that you're stuck with the version that you've been. You can change your habits, you can change your beliefs, you can change your identity, but only if you stop waiting for motivation and you start intentionally reprogramming what's running in the background. Because once your subconscious is aligned with where you want to go, everything starts to feel different. It's not that it becomes easier, it's not that it becomes, a walk in the park, but it's more natural. It becomes more you. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to take a second to share it. Send it to someone who needs it, or just sit with it for a moment and ask yourself, what am I reinforcing daily without realizing it? And also, wherever you listen to this podcast, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever, leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. And if you're seeing this on the podcast on Instagram, also just give us a follow at You the Boss Pod. And I will talk to you guys again next week.